Hey everyone, I wanted to go over some new and exciting news that we got for Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch. And that's the fact that there's a brand new patch available for everyone to go ahead and download, which is now version 3.5.0. This is the brand new latest patch available in the game, essentially addressing some more bug fixing and some quality of life changes that the game has been in dire need of. On top of that, we're also getting a couple of brand new hairstyles added into the game for completely free of charge. So of course, starting out, the first thing that they talk about in the patch notes is of course you need to make sure you download the update if you want to still be able to play online. You're not going to be able to have access to it if you haven't necessarily updated, which is always a given. And something that I'm not necessarily sure that they had mentioned before is that you do need Nintendo Switch Online membership in order to be able to play online. That's always been like part of the deal, but I'm not necessarily sure if they had mentioned that in the past. With that said, obviously this patch is now available as of the time of you watching this video, but I believe it also went up live, I believe in Japan a couple of hours ago as well. Now when it comes to main additions and changes, they always mention that there's new event quests available every single week. That's not necessarily anything entirely new. I think we're up to like 40 some event quests or something along those lines. 3 pages deep and a couple of rampages one as well. Developer challenges and stuff like that. So obviously event quests are the biggest factor when it comes to free DLC added into the game, and that is just continuing into this month. They also mentioned new DLC can be purchased from the Nintendo Switch eShop. As of right now, I'm not necessarily sure what they mean. I think they're talking about a brand new bundle of like stickers, songs and stuff like that, but I'll be covering that at a later date, so I'm not necessarily too sure as to what the details on that is as of this point in time. And moving into the bulk of the changes, they talk about base and facility changes. First and foremost, they mention a fixed bug that occasionally causes the game to freeze when you're using the move around village function into the training area. Remember that moving into the training area means that you're loading into an entirely different zone of the map. The training area is not part of the village essentially, so perhaps that is where that issue lies. Moving over to the monster sections of the bug changes, they talk about fixing a bug that causes an incorrect effect for Apex Diablo's powerful roar. They also mentioned that they fixed a bug that occasionally causes monsters to take double poison damage. Now, this one of course would have been great to know ahead of time, and specifically how to trigger it, because it definitely seems like something that people would have loved to be able to take advantage of if they knew how. And then moving over to the player changes in the bug section, they mentioned that there's an occasional bug that used to show up that would display some of the armor and clothing during cutscenes erroneously. So remember that during a cutscene, your armor is pretty much having like an extra layer of detail that's not necessarily shown as you're typically playing the game. Usually in cutscenes you get like a higher quality textures on your armor sets. It's not the same one that you're gonna see on PC with like 4K details and stuff like that, but it is a better quality of like shaders and stuff like that and all of that in detail. And presumably that was like not necessarily showcasing it rather well. Perhaps they're referring to that meshing look that whenever there's like a shadow effect on like your face armor and stuff like that, if it's just some sort of shadow, maybe that's actually something that they're addressing in this, but I'm not necessarily sure. We'll have to see it in action in game. They also mentioned there was a bug causing the wrong items to be dropped when you're catching the great gastronome tuna. So I'm not necessarily sure I've caught that tuna myself, but they mentioned that there was an issue with that as well. They also mentioned fixing a bug that caused raw meat being placed by a player to instantly disappear when another player joins the quest when it's originally in progress. These type of like errors whenever like another person is joining a quest or an event is, kind of common, so it's interesting that they're choosing to address these now. They also mentioned a bug that causes the player characters to perform a backstep instead of a round slash when you're pushing a stick back and pressing the X and A buttons after performing Sword and Shield's Falling Bash. So this is a bug that's pretty much addressing Sword and Shield's a couple of abilities that were like not necessarily working accurately. They also mentioned fixing a bug that prevents the player from using the dual blades Shrouded Vault in the desired direction if it's being performed at the end of a startup motion in Feral Demon mode. So again, weapons that have been having some type of bug fixes are being addressed. I believe last time we got like Switch Axe and Hammer, a couple of bug fixes in that regard. So it seems like weapons are still also being ironed out as well. They also mentioned fixing a bug that causes incorrect sound effect when trap bugs in some lance attacks when using the Akuma layered armor. So this is obviously the one from the event quest that we got a couple of months back. They also mentioned fixing a bug that occasionally prevents the players from using the gun lance's aerial burst while jumping off a ledge after dodging. This one's interesting because aerial burst is one of those highlight ones that I've seen a lot of people use in videos, so it's good that they're fixing that as well. They also fixed a bug preventing the appearance of rampage gun lances from changing if the character changes the shelling type and lands a worm strike cannon during multiplayer. So this one's really specific that they were even able to pick that up, but perhaps because of that it took so long to actually fix. They also fixed a bug that prevents the player from charging ammo files via the radio menu while riding a Palamute. This was interesting. Wow, you would have thought that they would have actually gotten to this, because again, the radio menu has had a lot of bug issues in the past. I've seen it mentioned several times in a couple of patches already, so interesting that they're now addressing this version of that bug going forward. They also mentioned when a player uses a bowgun steadiness during multiplayer to reduce recoil, this changes occasionally did not show up in the screen for other players. This has been fixed. So bowguns, again, is always getting fixed because bowgun is one of those weird weapons that is not necessarily as straightforward as the other ones. They also fixed a bug that occasionally freezes the game when using the character edit voucher via specific order of steps. So I do wonder if you actually end up getting used your edit voucher used if the game freezes, or it just picks it up from there, because it would suck if you actually end up getting your edit voucher used and you have to pretty much buy one, because I do think you get one for free or two for free. So it would be interesting to know if that was actually the issue. They also mentioned fixing a bug that causes the players riding a Palamute to deal damage to the Palamute mounted by another player when attacking that player. So interestingly enough, Palamutes were able to attack other Palamutes. Now this is something that I never saw before myself, because I don't think anyone actually rides the Palamute and attacks with it, unless they're just checking it out for the very first time. So it's interesting that you could hit other Palamutes with your Palamute in that form. And the last one that they mentioned here is fix a bug that prevents the armor from being sorted correctly if the player has multiple pieces of the same armor. So this is just a storage situation being sorted out. In the last section, in the miscellaneous, they also mentioned fixing a bug that allows players to be matched up with players on their block list under specific circumstances. Now that would actually suck, having to team up with people who you don't necessarily want to play as, or play with, I should say. I don't think I've ever actually blocked anyone in the game, so I'm not sure how that widespread of an issue that would actually be for others to deal with. And the last two things, as they mentioned, obviously fixed various text bugs, which is still something that is funny to see because they're always dealing with, you know, mistypes or typos and stuff like that. So it's always funny that they're still addressing that. And other miscellaneous bug fixes have been made, but that's always another one of those clarifiers that they don't necessarily tell you what they actually mean. But that's pretty much all the patch notes that we have for version 3.5.0. Remember that this is already live in the game right now, so you're going to be asked, or at the very least prompted, to go ahead and update the game if you want to be able to go ahead and still be able to have access to online and stuff like that. So definitely make sure you do so. Again, for a lot of people who are hoping like for quality of life changes and big, like, you know, additions like monsters and stuff like that, we're just gonna have to wait until Sunbreak. It seems like we're not necessarily gonna get another one of those like 4.0 updates or anything like that, which were rumored. This is something that we spoke about a couple of months back. There was a lot of rumors going about and information, let's say, being shown that potentially there could have been additions, but it seems like that's not necessarily gonna happen anytime soon. But that's all the information that I have for you guys today. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.